The Substance. A fading actress celebrity decides to use a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. Of course, it all doesn't go according to plan. When does it ever with body horror movies?
One single injection unlocks your DNA and will release another version of yourself. This is The Substance.
I am not a huge body horror person. I do like the horror genre and I like horror movies to an extent, but body horror is one that is definitely not up my alley. So I have to first start off by saying that for this video, the director of this film, Coralie Fargeat, who wrote and directed the crazy, awesome, bloody horror revenge movie called Revenge, I thought was a spectacular horror thriller revenge movie. I really did like the Revenge movie. It's probably one of the first movies I actually reviewed on this channel, and I gave it like a really high review. Going back a couple years later, rewatching that movie, I still think it is quite the banger of a film. The Substance was pretty good. I mean, it is really out there. There is so much happening in this movie and simultaneously like nothing happening in this movie. And it is a wild ride. You can tell that Coralie was definitely inspired by films like Death Becomes Her, and especially David Cronenberg's The Fly. But it's also got like some visual images of Barbie, Love Lies Bleeding, this other great sort of thriller, crime, bleak noir film that came out this past year. Kind of mixes them all together and has this kind of schlocky, glossy, yet creepy and gritty, gross out, balls to the wall horror film. The last 30 minutes is a horror bloodbath. I literally mean that in a lot of ways. Disgusting.
It's disgusting.
If you are someone who enjoys this kind of horror, I could see this being like one of your favorite films of this year. I have to commend Coralie for her beautiful art direction. The production design of this movie is incredible. The way that this movie looks, the visuals, the cinematography, the shots, the close-ups, the awkward, weird angles, and the way that this world is portrayed. It's like this sort of dystopian, alternate universe in Los Angeles, exploring just the horrors of men and women in, Hollywood society, and the treatment of women and celebrities after the age of like 50 are looked at or, underappreciated or not respected and loved. All these crazy ideas that are presented visually very stunningly on film. And I loved the look of this movie.
I like it a lot.
Of course, the tone and the body horror aspect of this movie is unbelievable. The design of the creatures and the monsters and the weird disfigurement of bodies in this movie is so well executed. It is so visceral that it's laughable at times, and this movie is definitely a satire black comedy. The way that the gore is presented, the way that our characters are so flawed from the beginning, and a bunch of things that I just really appreciated about this film, and especially the way that it makes you feel very grossed out. Like, this movie does its job of making you feel uncomfortable, that's for damn sure.
Comfortable in it.
The actors are amazing. This is probably Demi Moore's one of her best role, and if not her best role she's done of the last 20 years. I thought she was spectacular in this film. This character is just so deranged and unhinged and kind of sad and really lonely character, and just has all these layers to it, and I loved how they captured that with Demi Moore's performance. I mean, you got to give her props for just taking bold strides and taking huge risks of doing this movie. This is a really hard role in a very difficult movie. Margaret Qualley here is fantastic too. Again, I think this is another career highlight of hers, one of her best performances, and she's just slowly gotten better over the last 7-8 years. It just keeps proving herself, and she has done nothing but really great, interesting character work. I mean, and she has worked with some of the best directors out there, and I thought she was fantastic in this role as Sue, as kind of Demi Moore's counterpart in this movie, and again, another character who's just totally unhinged and so different from Demi Moore's character. Now, if you are someone that like needs everything to fit into a perfect box and everything logically needs to make sense, you're going to absolutely hate this movie, I think. It's just not that kind of film. It is definitely a mind mess of a movie. Takes a lot of twists and turns and not kind of the movie you thought it is, but then at times it totally is if you think about it. There are some really gnarly moments in this film.
Oh, gnarly!
And because of the level of body horror that's in this film, this is definitely a very subgenre specific taste of a movie that I could see turning off a lot of people, and then a very specific people probably turns them on.
I'm ready for some time on.
The comedy in this movie is really funny at times, but it's also like really messed up. Like, it's really messed up at times. Watching a satirical nightmare that is beautiful, haunting, grotesque, disgusting, invigorating, and thrilling all at once. It's hard to like watch moments in this film. Like, I kind of had to look away at parts, yet it's hard for me not to take my eyes off the screen. Some of the most audacious filmmaking I've probably seen this year. I think it's a really cool movie. I just don't know if it's like a movie I absolutely loved.
I don't love you.
Part of the reason that I don't love this movie is, like I already mentioned, the body horror. I'm not really into that genre, so already they kind of lost me a little bit from the beginning. Biggest problem for me is that this movie is almost 2.5 hours long. Way too long. This movie should have been maybe an hour and 50 minutes at most. I was looking at my watch multiple times throughout the movie. I was wondering, like, this should be the end. Yeah, there's like 45 minutes of this movie still left. What the heck is going on? And I found that the first 2/3 of the movie, the first 2 acts, are way better than the last act of this film. Even though people probably are waiting for the 3rd act of this film to get their thrills and everything, but I thought the first hour and a half was really good, really tight, great storytelling, interesting ideas. But it kind of falls apart in the 3rd act. It just becomes this kind of horror creature bloodbath movie, because it ends up being sort of like a cautionary fable story at the same time, and I just don't know if it worked in the last, especially 30 minutes of this film. For me, it just felt sort of like an incomplete ending in a lot of ways. I also feel like the ideas and the themes that are explored in this movie, while fantastic and really cool, the ideas and themes kind of are bigger than the actual story of the movie itself, of the actual like script and what happens and, you know, these characters and stuff. The ideas are bigger and better than the movie itself, if that makes any sense.
I don't get it.
Overall, most of this movie I did really enjoy, and I think like some people out there are going to rate this as one of the best movies of 2024. I'm not quite in that camp. While I appreciate the movie and I respect it, I don't know if I necessarily loved it. But as a horror film, as an audacious movie-making genre of a film, I think it's a really cool production. And I'm so excited that Coralie Fargeat got to cook in the kitchen. I'm so curious and excited to see what she comes up with next.
I would cook up a peanut oil.
Before I get my final thoughts and grade on this film, if you like this video, please make sure you click that like button and subscribe to my channel for more content. Comment down below, what did you think of The Substance? Is this one of your favorite horror movies of the year? Did you love this movie or did you absolutely hate it? Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Let me know with your thoughts and comments down below on this film. Definitely a recommend for those horror fans and especially for those people who love body horror movies. So I'm gonna go ahead and give The Substance a B+. Come back and check out some other video reviews such as the double feature of Speak No Evil and Never Let Go and Beetlejuice. Have a great day everyone and we'll see you on the next film.